And we're back with some more Dyson Sphere Program. And today we're going to start with a little bit of combat. I meant to go over that the last time. I was trying to figure out what was the most efficient way to clear an area. And since we were, well, getting ourselves some unipolar magnets here for the next build, I thought, why not just go along and show you, well, the more efficient methods I found of cleaning out these guys. Whoop, too close. That was a tiny tad too close. Yeah, you can tell by the laser beams flying by us. Anyway, what I like to do is come in from the side of one of these and sort of draw these guys away. Get them away from the base if at all possible, because the base has, well, planetary defenses or defenses on it, and it makes it a little bit harder for you to kill them all. That is a fair few of them. Can we move a little bit faster? Normally you need to hit about 600-700 meters per second, and that'll get us away from this at a decent clip. And battle-wise, yeah, that's it. Over on the right, you can see how our fleets are configured. We have one destroyer or warship in each group, and the rest are all corvettes. Now, what I've determined from playing around and reading a bunch of stuff on Reddit and a few things like that, and oh my god, why are we not getting any further away from that? We must be in its orbit. 1 second while I speed this up a bit so we can hopefully put a distance between ourselves and that base. There we go, much better. Alright, what we really want to do is keep the warships alive, the big guys. Those big guys right there are... They're what really does most of the damage. The corvettes actually have a higher DPS, but the problem with the corvettes is they do attack runs, so they dip in and out, and because they're dipping in and out, they don't quite do as much damage as you would expect. Now, what we want to do is try and get to, you can see on the right side here, we're about 0.47 AU from the nearest hive. That's about a good distance. We want to maintain that because it keeps us just outside of their sort of defensive range, while also allowing our ships to immediately get back into combat as they get destroyed. What you're trying to do here is let the corvettes run in and get themselves shot up into pieces. And then your warships hopefully stay at a distance there. One died, and once one dies, it has to get respawned. And the respawn time, well, it takes time for them to respawn. You can see those ones dipping back in to get into the fight. So every time they die, they have to respawn and go back into the fight. And that's time they're not shooting. And you'd really prefer for them to be shooting a lot more than they're dead. So the corvettes, you don't mind dying because they do attack runs, and they're more likely to, well, avoid attacks and less likely to do as much damage. While the warships, basically, they have what appears to be just turrets mounted on them. They just shoot constantly the moment they get in combat range. And we're getting a little bit too far away from the fight now. And because we're getting too far away from the fight, we're slowing down our DPS. Yeah. And another thing. Down the bottom here, you'll see the number of dark fog units. That is based on the amount we can see at any one time. So if we look away, there's 0 dark fog units. If we look back, everything on our screen counts. So this allows us to figure out how many units are left and how many are there before we start our attacks. This was horribly messy because we got way too close because I warped too quickly in range. But now that that's done, it's time to go take out the base itself. For that, enable. Yeah, can bring them all back in. I like to disable enable them so that they all group back up again, and then they can get right back in from one side. Otherwise, they seem to be scattered all over the place. Alright, let's get in and finish this off. Corvettes are actually the fastest way to finish off the base. Corvettes seem to stand still when they're shooting at the base itself. Whereas when they're fighting other ships, they tend to do attack runs. So what I found was corvettes are actually a little bit faster at finishing off the base than the warships are, because they just tend to do more damage when they have just a base to attack. But when there's lots of ships to fight, there's still about 110 of them left, the warships tend to do a little bit better with the corvettes as soakage. And we'll just let them choose through the last of these. We've still got plenty of warships left, we've still got plenty of corvettes left, and we'll just shoot through them all. In my testing, I tried a bunch of different strategies. I can't have a look at them now, but basically you can have 3 destroyers in each squad. I tried that. That's actually pretty good. You can have all corvettes, which is terrible. It's the slowest and worst. You can have 1 destroyer and a bunch of corvettes, which actually sometimes works out faster than just having 3 destroyers. And then there's 2 destroyers and 1 corvette, which works out worse than 3 destroyers and worse than 1 destroyer and 2 corvettes. For some reason, 2 destroyers and 1 corvette, there's just not enough soakage or flak. And there's just not enough, you don't get the bonuses of all the extra firepower of the destroyers just constantly blapping away. So it just seemed that was worse that way. So in the end, this turns out to be probably the most cost-effective method. But if you're worried more about storage space in your inventory, you can go with just all destroyers, though you will use about 200 every time you take out one of these hives. Whereas if you go with corvettes and destroyers, you loot about 250 ships, but it'll be spread across the corvettes and destroyers, and usually less destroyers get killed. So it normally gives you more staying power. Reason being is you're able to hold corvettes and destroyers in this section here. So what I like to do is use corvettes and destroyers at the start. Once the corvettes start to run out, switch over entirely to destroyers. And it just gives you more longevity without having to go and grab more ships. Anyway, with that done, back to our previously scheduled. It looks like a relay station is about to try and land on that planet over there. And the relay station has encountered our planetary defenses. And the relay station is dead. Well then, time to take out the second hive. I forgot I should probably demonstrate how to do this without blindly blundering into it. First, come at it from the side. Do not come from the top or the bottom. That's just going to leave you in a whole world of trouble. There we go. Now, what we want to do is get within about 0.5 AU of the hive. First off, let's bring up the fleet. We'll enable them. You want to make sure they start shooting as soon as the option becomes available. Another thing I should probably do is get rid of that unipolar magnets thing. I think we've knocked out all of these, have we? Except for power storage, which I don't care about. What? Actually, I kind of want to do power storage now just to see what happens. We'll worry about that later. For now, time to accelerate in. Normally what I like to do is have about 700 meters per second as my acceleration-deceleration speed, but it really does depend on how fast the hive is moving. The hive has its own orbit, and when you're dipping in and out, you kind of want to dip in and then dip out as quick as you can. Because if the ships all target your droid, you're dead. You will get blapped. Doesn't matter how good your shields are if enough of them target you. We're facing about 1,500 Dark Fog space units. Well, 1,563. Now we're getting into about 0.5. And go on. They normally turn a little bit red when they start getting hostile. Control and left click to make them attack. Then turn around 180 degrees. 0.4 AUs away. And we've already gone up to 0.5, so we need to slow down a bit. We want to stay at about the 0.5 AUs. We want to be close enough that all of our people still aggro. We want our ships to immediately spawn and then return to battle. We don't want them too far away, but we want to try and draw the ships away from their own hive so that the point defense they have or the base defense they have doesn't cause us too many problems. Then what we're trying to do is stay about 0.5 AUs away from the hive at all times. So I've got the center of the hive linked, so we know we're 0.56. So we want to try and stay about that much away and then sort of sidle back and forth in front of everything. With it close enough that our ships can immediately spawn and run back in, but not so close that we should get targeted. You can go in a little bit closer if you want, though. It really depends on your shielding level. If you have very high shielding and it's later in the game, that's better. Oh, see the way the ships are losing health? You can see those ships losing health and then dying. That's good. If you see the ships losing health and not dying, that means your ships are dying before they're getting a chance to kill them. Normally your destroyers will target down a ship and then just keep lapping it until it's destroyed, which is what you want. You don't want to be wounding lots of ships without killing anything. One downside, though, is it's kind of hard to tell how big the blob is that's left because there's just no injured ones. So you might think, oh, we've killed all the ships, and then you realize there's a massive swarm as you get in closer. You just can't see them because none of them are injured. And that is, well, most of the units dead. Now, do bear in mind, this normally takes a lot longer. It's just we've got some good upgrades on our energy weapons. The only thing that really counts in this game when it comes to weapons and upgrades. Actually, let's pause it for a second and go in and have a look at the research tree. Here's the combat section, and here's your weapon damage coefficient and energy weapon damage. Energy weapon damage is the #1 most important one, as well as that combat drone damage. These two will increase your space fighter damage, and the energy weapons, all of your ships, all of your summon ships, they all have energy weapon damage. So there's no point in investing heavily in kinetics, explosives, or EM. As far as I can tell, combat drone, once you get up to the highest levels, always get the basic levels of just about everything because they're relatively cheap. But after that, you want to try and specialize in combat drone attack damage, which gives you a 20% increase to all of your damage, which is kind of nice, and energy weapon damage because all of your ships use that. As well as that, when it comes to weaponry that you're going to be using on planets, you're probably going to be using plasma weaponry, and plasma weaponry is also an energy type damage. So yes, go for it. And you have a laser on your mech. I think that's energy weapon, though honestly the laser in your mech, you're barely ever going to use it. Now, we should get in a little bit closer. The fight's getting a bit far away. And that's basically it. Get energy weapon damage, get the ship weapon damage, go down those trees as much as you can. 2 sets of corvettes, 1 destroyer in every group. Well, the moment you get access to destroyers. And then go ham. Dip in, dip out, and try and break off pieces of them, because the bigger the group you have to fight, the slower it's going to be and the harder it's going to be to kill them all. Right now, how many ships are we down to? They've got about 200 ships left. In that case, we'll do a quick refresh on our fleet. Disable them all. Enable. I would not disable enable if you have weak energy levels. We have massive amounts of energy because of the way we're configured, so we can do that. Also, every time you disable and enable the ships, it resets their hit points, which is good. That means you don't have to worry about them dying. Normally, they just get dribbled away through attrition. And this way, we're going to zip back in here. Hey, where are you guys going? Get back here. We're not finished killing you all. Holding down control and left-clicking on a group will send your ships in to attack. It's a good way to get them to move in and start killing stuff. And away they go again. They're a thirsty lot. Anyway, then it's just a case of dribbling through the last of them. When it comes to the space station itself, it's got a bunch of laser cannons on it, but they'll drop fairly quick. And we just let them chew away. I have actually run out of corvettes. My own fault, I should have been keeping an eye on that. So, when you run out of corvettes, we just switch over to destroyers. Maybe because we still have lots in storage, and destroyers are all destroyers are basically the second best alternative. And then we just run back in again, enable the fleet. And then we can charge back in and kill them. And while I'm back at the base, I think I'll try sticking a energy cell in here to discharge it. Shouldn't that finish off that last achievement? Milestone, whatever. Activate an accumulator. Okay. Pretty sure this is going to discharge it. Well, that was not what we were looking for. Well, that was not at all obvious. Huh. Wait a minute. If I just put down a blank accumulator, will that just act like power storage for the network and even at flow? Oh my god. These things are basically capacitors. What? How did I not know this? Was this possible when they first introduced them? Because I know when I first played the game, I didn't think this was a possibility. But this means with solar power on these, you don't have to work. What's the construction costs on these again? Because with solar power on those, you could literally get by a lot easier in the early game. Or, I mean, okay, you can still do the solar belts. Oh, it does require those supermagnetic rings. They're not too easy to get your hands on early on. Oh, yeah, fair enough. So maybe it's not perfect with solar, but... Well, okay, it's good to know that is a thing. And you power storage. Does that finally unlock this thing, whatever it is? Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I just realized. We still haven't knocked out that final research. There is the end game research. I still haven't actually done it yet. Where is it? All the way at the end here. Yes, mission complete. Requires 4,000 research. I mean, we'll get around to it in a bit. We got other stuff we were planning on doing. The first thing that needed doing was space warpers. We needed something to produce them in higher quantities. This thing can churn out about 5,400 per minute, which should be more than sufficient for our needs. Currently, we're consuming 95.8 every 10, or on average, a minute. Yeah, so it's somewhere between 93 to... Let's go back 100 hours. Right. So about 90-ish. We only need 90-ish so far. 5,000 should definitely tide us over in for the foreseeable future. We put this in the same planetary system as the grav lenses because there was most of the resources we needed nearby anyway. We did hook up unipolar magnets to this. Namely because it just made things a little bit simpler. Where was it? Pink particle containers. Normally these guys require green motors, and that's just a whole bunch of... You need gears, you need regular motors, the green motors... No. We cut all of that out, just use unipolar magnets. In fact, if I had been smarter, what I would have done is done the same thing with these Casimir crystals. We could have used the alternative recipe and used grading crystals to definitely cut down... but by the time I'd realized it, I'd already had most of this built, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to redo it all. This is perfectly acceptable, does the job. A little bit of a power hog, but works. Alright. Now comes the very final thing we need to do. That is to make a science build. Now, one thing, I drastically cut down on the amount of splitters we use. I've been advised that these things are bad for your UPS, frames per second, whatever. Like up here you can see we've got frames per second and such. So the frames per second is how smooth the video is, whereas the blue stuff is the logic frame rate, as in the simulation speed of the game. For example, it says we've been going for like 171 hours down here, but we're only going at like 28 actions out of every 60 seconds, so we're usually only getting about half speed. So if I let this run overnight for 8 hours, it really only runs for about 4 hours in terms of in-game time. Is a bit odd. But that's fine, that's fine. We're going to have to demolish a bunch of stuff once we start putting down science to free up more UPS to make more science. And this is the area of the map we're going to build it in, namely because we've got these stalagmite crystals over here. They're pretty handy at cutting down on complications. Right now, we're just sticking down some infrastructure. This here is a fire ice giant. And it's producing 3,823 fire ice per minute. Because of all the mining upgrades we've got under research, our mining speed, vein utilization, all that stuff, we're basically pulling in just ridiculous amounts. This year, this one fire ice, if we fed that into just making science, would produce us 3,645 white science per minute, assuming we're using it for science. And we've also got all of this excess hydrogen as well, which, yeah, we don't need. And the regular gas giants, they produce hydrogen and deuterium, and usually about 400 or 500 deuterium per mine, meaning we don't need to worry about hydrogen, deuterium, or fire ice from any other sources but these, because they're just so plentiful. Before we start up science production, there's a couple of things we need to get rid of. Basically things that are soaking up frames we no longer need. This is one of our older solar sail production facilities. It's smaller, well, not smaller. It takes up a lot more space, in fact, because it's using older machines, and it's on a planet that's pretty far. It's no longer necessary. This whole thing can go. This is going to mess up our inventory, but that's okay. We can scrap a whole bunch of the junk that we leave behind. Though, I think I will keep one of these. I can't remember if I've blueprinted this or not. I'm pretty sure I have, but I'd prefer to keep at least a blueprint around for later. Actually, never mind. I do have that blueprint in stock, so you can all go and hopefully free us up a few frames. Next on the chopping block has to be the Abomination. Beautiful as this thing is, its whole purpose in life is to produce these space warpers, which it does. It's just, and it does it in quite a compact form factor. Just, I've learned an awful lot since then, and this thing is just ugly. I've kept the blueprint though, but bye-bye, my red-headed stepchild. You know, it's the red-headed stepchild of all the builds I've made, I'd say. I love it, but I hate it at the same time. Our first miniature antimatter production facility, no longer required. We've got mass antimatter being produced elsewhere at much more efficient rates. This here is our original smelter planet, and I want to see if we can get rid of some of the proliferate production. Well, the proliferate production that goes into it is currently coming from this local planet. I'm just trying to cut down everything we can so we can get some frames back. This here is our old proliferate setup. There's 6 of them. Well, I'm afraid they all have to go. Wait, what are you? You're crude oil? Oh, yeah, put a crude oil storage there. Just in case we need the crude oil somewhere else, probably for science or something. I'm pretty sure we never got around to it. Alright, you've all got to go. Sorry. And I made sure I had the blueprints first. We're still looking about 13 to 14 frames a second. I think we're going to have to take more drastic actions to try and get some of our frames back. Hold on. I think I know the culprit. Remember the way I mentioned that splitters are a little bit of a UPS hog, have been advised? Well, there's a few splitters here that might be causing some frame drops. Just a few. There's at least 1,600, maybe 2,000. Somewhere between 1,500 to 2,000 of them there. So, instead of redoing the entire mall, which would take me too damn long to do it without those, I'm just going to download a mall from the blueprint section. And the mall we have come up with is Ultimate Mall. From Raw, including ammo. I didn't think we need half of this, but it does use a lot of the late game stuff, and I think I'd like that. And I have no idea how this is supposed to fit in somewhere. There? Right, that would actually... No, it's not going to quite fit. We'll move you a little bit further right. How about there? Seriously? This is way easier. We can just come over and eyeball where it is. There you go. How about now? Will you fit there? Oh. Yep. It's going to fit. We just have to make sure to stock up enough of resources, and maybe we'll put down a few of these little helpers to make sure that it gets built in a timely fashion. Right now, this is definitely hurting our frames, but that's probably to do with the production. From what I can see, this takes about 600 splitters, which is still a lot less than our current one. But once this is up and running, and hopefully it works, we'll rip out the splitters from our old build, and hopefully we go from 13 to 14 frames up to like 15, 16, maybe? We are missing a few bits and pieces. I'll get around to them later, but yeah, interesting. This is basically, it's taken the black box design all the way to its logical conclusion of it builds literally everything itself. Even its proliferate that it uses, this is also built by the system. There's nothing separated out. Pretty sure it also builds its own space warper. So it builds its own space warper, its own proliferate, its own everything, and all you do is feed it raw resources. Quite nice. Now, it hasn't actually spun up the whole way yet. Namely because, well, it's going to have to backfill a lot of buildings. This here, the front line, this appears to be where all the raw resources come in and get processed. So you'll see you got your copper ore turned into copper plate. That's going to be combined with the magnets to make the magnetic coils. The magnets are coming from over here somewhere. Whole thing's a bit of a... It's a lot of higgledy-piggledy stuff. But hey, it's more organized than mine in a lot of ways. So this all goes along. So the frontier is basically all the major processing, and the rear, well, this is where all of the buildings are produced. So as you can see, you got your... Yeah, this is actually pretty far back. This is going to be a while before the foundation ever kicks in. But you got your cases, you got your whatever you call them, your liquid tanks. Oh, yeah, but how did these get sent on? You know what? It doesn't really matter. All we need to do is let this spin up a little bit, make sure it's working fine. And have any of those completed yet? What I'd like to do is get hands on a few of those logistics distributors. I never automated those because I haven't been using them. But you can use them to feed stuff into your mech. So you basically set a number on these, and so long as if you don't have that number, it should automatically top you up, I believe, is the plan. However, I haven't been using that because I've been kind of lazy. But let's let this spin up for another 30 or 40 minutes and see what happens. Why? 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 This design also comes with 4 shields. We're not interested. We already have this planet completely protected, so no, not necessary. No! There is no need for that. That's just... Oh, no! Right now, I'm just adjusting our amounts, as in the amount of stuff we're supposed to carry around with us. So, we're just going to carry around about 1,000 of those guys, 1,000 of these guys. Basically, a little bit of everything to make sure that we don't run out. Then as we go past this mall, the mall will top us right back up again if we ever do run low on any of these things. I've never really bothered with this, but it does seem pretty handy. Like there, we just got those ships dropped off. Well, what should happen is it should top us up to 550 of each of those, which means we'll have 500 in here and an extra 50 out here. I just thought it would be convenient. One thing I've been doing is trying to, well, get everything set up in here, and we should have 500 interstellar logistic vessels on it. Oh, wait a minute. We do, don't we? We have exactly 500. Let's say we should always have 700. So, actually, we'll back away a little bit from this chest. This chest is going to dispatch the stuff we require. Now, I knew this existed, but I wasn't too bothered with it. It seemed like a lot more effort than it was worth for me, so we'll make that 700. And done. And then the little bots come out, and they drop off all of the ships. So now we have an extra 200 down there, meaning we have 700 in total. 200 in our inventory, another 500 in there. This is handy if you want to like top up on stuff quickly, but unless you're going to be coming back to your home planet a lot, I didn't find this super useful. I would prefer, like, normally I'm off in the middle of nowhere, and then I basically just called out an interstellar logistics station, and normally what I need is transport belt, inserters, recomposing assemblers, and negatropy smelters. Early on, I think this would be far more useful. Later on, I suppose it's like I do come back here occasionally, so the fact that it's all set up is basically free, so it's perfect. One thing I've also noticed is they do have one blue belt assembler, which is great. That's actually, well, it's going to be triple the speed of one of my normal ones, and it's about the same amount as I would produce. However, there's no backup storage. Problem is, this tower's only going to hold about 20,000. So 20,000 transport belt may seem like a lot, but then you start looking at your blueprints. This ultimate mall already takes 25,000. So the ultimate mall itself actually would consume more blue belt than this thing would store, even at the max storage. This is the 112.5 rockets per minute black box that I use, and I chucked down, like 12 of those easily at one point. 7,000 transport belt. So 3 of these alone would drain your entire transport belt reserves. So all I did was I stuck on this. Basically, it's just a giant storage tank on top of it. This will just keep producing, and it will, once it backs up in the tower, it fills up this. Downside is this only seems to output at 1. There's no way to make this output at 2. Kind of frustrating. Actually, maybe there is a way to fix that, though. So, minor adjustment here. The transport belt's going to come down here, go into the splitter, and then because we can't get it to output quad stacked, we're going to sort of triple stack it by using well, one output comes this way, stack inserter, stack it up, one output goes that way. There's also a stacker you can use, but I don't think it would work the same in this instance. So in that case, we'll just stick a bunch of them on there. And that means when that starts to empty, well, this can be emptied at triple rates to fill it back up again. Not quad rates, but triple rates should be fine. And that'll give us plenty of a backlog of transport belt to hopefully tide us over. Alright, oh. And all of the towers have been set to 300 megawatts of power drain. Every single one of them is maxed out. This is actually quite smart the way it does it. It won't actually drain 300 megawatts of power on max charging if it's mostly full. It basically ramps up the power drain the further down its charge bar goes. So if it has zero power, it'll draw pretty much the full 300 megawatts. But by the time it's at 25%, it'll only be drawing about 200 megawatts or something along those lines. It decreases in power draw as it gets near the top and increases as it goes down. This way it kind of smooths it out, so it's not janky where, just say, a bunch of towers request stuff simultaneously or are requesting stuff. They won't always be going, oh, I need stuff now, and then immediately crank up to 300 megawatts. It's actually quite well done. Alright, with that up and running, I think what we're going to do is, well, I'm afraid the old mall is going to have to go. Well, not quite have to go. We're going to dismantle the main throughput bus. We're going to leave all of these towers here because they've got valuable stuff in them. There's still plenty of transport belt and all this good stuff that we can use. But the whole bus down the middle that supplies it can go. I think we're going to start on this end. We're at 12. We get 12 frames per second and 23 in actual activity. Oh, yeah, that game does not like that. Yeah, this could take a minute. Dear God, the explosion. Some of those resources are so expensive. It looks like Christmas in here. That is so much glitter everywhere. Alright, let's clean that up. We're still at 1325. Seriously? Even after all of that? Seriously? Oh my God. Fine, I'll clean out the rest. One downside of this design I discovered, they don't store regular plasma ammo. These plasma capsules are the basic ones. I use them for all of my defensive towers. I've got plenty in storage, so that's fine. It's not like we're going to run out anytime soon. I just consider it a minor negative. As well as that the antimatter that was going in here, you actually have to provide the antimatter. It doesn't take photons and spit them out. That's going to eat into some other production, but I bulked that up to take care of it. And as well as that the antimatter was not being proliferated before going into the machine, which means we're getting 90 per minute instead of 112. So I belt food on some proliferate. Also, the output was not being proliferated, though I think that was intentional. I decided to proliferate the stuff. I prefer my ammo is proliferated before it goes out into the field. That way I don't accidentally forget. But with all of that done, yeah, it didn't improve the frame rate. I was really hoping that would do some frame rate stuff. No, nothing. We're still at about 12. Actually, I think it might be slightly better, but it's not enough. Damn it. Okay, in that case, I think we're going to have to get rid of Dyson ships. There's pretty much an entire planet of stuff that can be demolished. Where did I put you? Oh, just to note, we're at 1326. 1428 when we're in space? Huh. Let's see what's like when we get to the other side. In hyperspace, we're getting 15/30. We're getting 15 frames per second and 30, so basically we're half. We've got half the ticks going on in game that we should have. That's probably the best I've seen it in a while. It would appear being in a system is much worse than actually just being in warp. Okay then, well, let's start demolishing buildings and see if that helps. The planet has been wiped clean. We got rid of most of the... Well, okay, this is the smaller planet of Dyson chips. It's not the actual factory one. So we wiped out about 6 production facilities, or 5 or something along those lines. I've also converted all the mines over to be remote mines. As in, this organic crystal here can now be transported elsewhere. Same with the stone, same with the coal, same with the silicon. All of that stuff all has access to warpers. What? Is that warper stuff actually making a difference? You know what? Don't care. No, I mean the warper had productivity stuff on it, or proliferate. I don't think that matters. Never mind. We'll head over to this location here. This one here is the primary. Right now we've actually got 15 frames per second. Well, okay, 13, 14. I think we've actually gained about a frame back, maybe. Give or take. So I think by the time we wipe out most of these and leave one ship production facility behind, I think we'll get a few more frames. Now, this place, yeah, it's a little bit more tightly packed.
Cruise ended.
Oh, I wish there was a planetary delete button. It would make this so much simpler. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go make it rain. Oh, 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 the game does not like that even. Oh, yeah, it is. That hurts. I think the computer almost crashed there. I think I'm gonna restart my computer and then continue with this. Not great benefits there. Took out all but one of the production facilities, like stripped out the map, took out all of the power generation as well, barring one blob. Yeah, the only reason those towers are left behind is they're full of, well, they're full of small carrier rockets. It feels wrong to dispose of 20,000 carrier rockets. I mean, I know I'm not going to use them, but I feel like bad throwing them away. I think the problem is the Dyson Sphere. 1 second. This thing is not even close to finished, but I think this may be what's eating the frames. Let me try something here. I'll turn this off again. Yeah, but like just being in this system, even with it off. Maybe if I turn off the solar sail launching for a bit. I've turned off the solar sails for a bit. I just want to see if this is what's actually draining it or if it's just the sheer size of the Dyson Sphere. I suppose it is a tiny bit big. We're almost up to 5 terawatts. Yeah, we're definitely going to hit the 6 or 8 we need, but I don't think we're going to be able to spend all of that. I maybe should have designed the Dyson Sphere around the amount of power I need. Not, yeah, that's, this was probably, I did this arseways. I don't think you need a Dyson Sphere this large to generate, because we don't need this much power. I don't think you can spend this much power, and I think the Dyson Sphere is going to completely tank the frame rate. Yeah, what can you do? But I'm seeing the odd, like, going up to 17 or 16, 17 FPS. So it actually kind of worked. Yeah, but I'm not turning off the yeah, I'm still going to finish the Dyson Sphere. Like, we can't not. It'll just take us a little bit longer, that's all. I have good news and I have bad news. We have 1/3 of the solar sails installed. The bad news, we only have 1/3 of the solar sails installed. That means there's 2/3 still to go. I'm going to have to leave this running, like, over the weekend or something. Oh my god, this is going to kill my electricity bill. Okay, where were we? Ah, yes, in that case, let's just start on the science. The hard part about figuring out the science is, well, parsing all of this into something that I can turn into a build that's replicatable, you know, like a bite-sized chunk. This was my attempt at that, and I think I've got it right. It just took me way too long to figure it all out. Now, trust me, this actually, no, I can't say trust me on this one. It will probably never make sense. Okay, but in my head, this is how I can organize it out so that I can build it out in the traditional style we've come to know of, hopefully while cutting down on the amount of splitters that we use. So from what I can tell, it's not the splitters that's killing us. It's the Dyson Sphere. The fact that we've got a Dyson Sphere that's 5 terawatts is a complete waste. We should have stopped at about 1. That would be more than enough power to do about 10,000 signs per minute and change. Probably more like 50,000 signs per minute. Actually, no, not 50,000. Ooh, 50,000 probably would require 2 terawatts. Like, that's just... Oh. Well, we're still finishing it out, but as we keep going, I think the frames are going to keep dropping off. But what I have learned is if I'm leaving this overnight, I should drag that all the way up to there. That should hopefully increase the... It's 34 ticks? 35? Okay, that's the UPS, as in how many actions it's taking. 34 to 35, that's it. If we put it back down to 1, 2... Right, it's 32. So, even though we increase the ratio, heavily skew it in favor of UPS, it doesn't really do much. What happens if we put it at a 1-to-1 ratio? We get about 30 frames per second and the game drops a couple of UPS. Wow. Oh, that's interesting. I'd almost prefer the frames when I'm playing. Actually, no, I would prefer the frames when I'm playing. That's actually a really cool feature. Huh. Anyway, I am actually really out of time. I spent too much time trying to figure out how I was going to place together the science that I never actually got to build the science. You know how it is when you start working with spreadsheets, you can't stop. Anyway, I'm going to cut this out here. Next up, we will do the science and then spread it until the computer starts to cry. That's the plan. Anyway, I'm going to cut this out here. I hope you enjoyed and good luck.